All eyes on the Manhattan Criminal Courthouse today, where the 45th President of the United States, Donald Trump, is expected to be indicted. Those unprecedented charges from the state of New York have ranged from a misdemeanor to a low-level felony of an alleged payment to a porn star 6 years ago. Members of the New York Police Department, the US Secret Service, and officials from the Manhattan District Attorney Alvin Bragg's office will be in attendance. Let's bring in now Director of Freshwater Strategy, Mr Shanahan.
Thanks, Sharri.
Leo, what is the latest on this?
Well, look, I think it's pretty clear that Donald Trump is likely to be indicted. He's made that pretty clear himself. And the implications that are flowing from that for obviously his second run at the White House. And look, I think more broadly, there needs to be an acceptance that the prosecutors need to move very carefully on this, because as Joe Hockey made this point quite well in the book that I wrote with him, Diplomatic, and his time in the US.
For viewers who don't know, you were his biographer?
Yeah. And that a lot of the systems in the US in recent years have largely been weaponised. That is to say, Senate committees and others, and even the FBI itself at times has largely made quite political decisions. Now, that's not to say they were necessarily biased against one way or the other, but they were quite motivated by politics to get outcomes against certain representatives, and Donald Trump being chief among them. So I think if they misstep, even legal experts say this is no home run for the prosecutors, and it is something that dates back several years now, and it does look very conspicuous in its timing. So it could potentially be extremely divisive for the nation. And if they get it wrong, and if politics has taught us anything the last few years, it's that the worm turns. And can you imagine if Donald Trump is exonerated from this after a trial, which, by the way, doesn't even stop him running as a candidate?
Now, today, one of the state's key witnesses, Michael Cohen, was discredited by his own former legal advisor, Rob Costello. Have a look.
I just spent 2 hours or so testifying before the grand jury in downtown Manhattan, and I got my point across, although it was clear to me that the Manhattan DA's office did not want to get to the truth. I need to explain that a little bit. I called them up after I saw Michael Cohen on TV stating things that he said he was going to tell the grand jury and had told the grand jury that were contrary to what he told us when we first represented him in April of 2018. So I'm sitting at home watching these lies, and I said, I've got to do something about it. I don't represent Donald Trump, but I do stand for justice, and I think I have a legal obligation to inform both sides. So that's what I did.
Look, you look at something like that, Leo, and if it is the case that there has been, that Michael Cohen has changed his story or told lies, if Trump is then arrested in the next 12 hours or so, you will see people re-energized, even people who'd kind of gone off Trump, because there has been this movement away from him post-January 6th, and a lot of people are now supporting Ron DeSantis. But this might energize his supporters.
Oh, definitely. And it makes him a martyr of the cause. And, as I said, if prosecutors don't get this right, this could really blow up in not only their faces, but the Democrats' faces who are cheering this on. And Michael Cohen has had significant problems with his own credibility in the past. And if he's going to be the key witness, they better be sure that they're getting it right.
Okay. Now, you've got polling. Your company, Freshwater, has got polling that looks at Chris Minns and Dominic Perrottet 3 days out from polling day. What does it show? Yeah,
well, look, the AFR Freshwater poll, it's to be released tomorrow. Look, it does have some really interesting findings in regards to preferred premier. Now, there was a lot made of Dominic Perrottet's comeback, if you like, on that particular data point, that he had over a 12-point lead in our previous poll on preferred premier. Chris Minns has now gained 5 points on that, 6 points, I should say, in preferred premier, and back from 12 points behind. Now, Perrottet still leads. It's a 5-point lead, but what this does show is that perhaps that run that the premier had later, or at least in the mid-campaign, might be drying up a bit, and that ultimately Labor might be getting a lot more of the momentum in the last week.
So ultimately, your prediction from your polling, who's going to win?
Look, you'll have to read it tomorrow.
But who's going to win on Saturday?
Look, on Saturday, I'd say you're going to have a Labor government. The question is whether it's going to be a majority or a minority, and I'd be tipping a minority government.
Yeah. All right, Leah Shanahan, thanks for your time today.
Thanks, Sharri.